Hey everyone, my name is Scott. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what goes behind the scenes in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu photography. So, today we're going to talk about three main photographers and not about me, just to look at what goes into what I consider as like the gold standard, what really comes up to me as a good picture, right? So, let's go ahead and hop over here to Instagram. All right, so the first essential gold standard photographer that we're going to talk about is Mike Kalimbas. So Mike has been around on the scene for a while, and you will commonly see him, as you see here, ADCC head photographer, but he does do a lot of work for IBJJF. And I think that's important to put out there because in order to shoot those types of events, you have to have a level of prestige that confirms that you are pretty much the guy. So let's take a look at a couple of his pictures here. So this is Mike, by the way. I've never met Mike in person. However, I, I follow him. I'm a big fan of what he does. So I consider him as one of my mentors, whether or not he knows that. But Mike has a good, well balanced skill set here that pretty much confirms anytime that he puts something up, it's going to be golden. Now, I know being a photographer that not every single picture that you take is going to be that picture, but I feel like he does a really good job of deciding when to take the picture, right? So, a couple of things here. This picture is really crazy. Obviously, we got those dudes like saliva going. He obviously just won. He's hyped, right? We're looking at a couple of things here. Is there motion blur? No, not intended, at least, right? There's this guy, no motion blur, really well composed. He's right in the center. Let me see a couple other ones here. This one with a lot of motion, knowing pretty much what shutter speed, what aperture, what ISO, all of those things, obviously, you'd have to know as a photographer, but being able to look and get these things right in the moments is one of those things that makes a good photographer really great. Being able to get these things without missing them. Because I can tell you that this move right here, there's two things about it, right? What makes a person good at shooting jujitsu is knowing obviously the context, the composition, and then the settings. Those are like the three things that I would consider. The context is going to tell you when this move is going to happen. If you don't know what jujitsu looks like, you don't know that this move is about to happen or that the arm is being isolated. So you should probably take a look and see what's going to happen right there. Okay. So let's look at another thing here. So this is Gordon Ryan. I'm sure you know him. Gordon Ryan here is pretty much being taken a picture of in front of all these people. We have his name right here. We have the flag. We've got him pretty much over here. So what I really like about this picture is that obviously the spotlight's on him. And that is very important because it makes everything else not really that important, right? What I think was the defining factor here was the f stop, right? A higher f stop would have probably put more people in the frame or more people in the picture, but this is Gordon Ryan's moment, dude. It's important to know that there are a bunch of people here, but whether or not they're fully in focus is not really that important. So I think that was a really cool shot. Obviously, like he's definitely main character right there. So overall, the gold standard. I'm a great person to look at for jiu-jitsu photography is Mike Kalimbas. So I do want to move on to another photographer. That way we can give them a little bit of exposure, as they always say. But just to give you a different look at the same sport, different approach. Okay. So before we do that, So my setup, my typical setup here is my Canon R6 Mark II with the 70 to 200 RF lens. This is a very common focal length that you will see. Being that it's a zoom, it gives you a lot more, capability if I need to shoot like really, really far across the mat. Sometimes I'm not really, really close to the action. So having the flexibility to get a little bit of length through there is really, really nice. So that's why I chose this lens. I also chose this specific lens, the 2.8, because it's going to give me better low light performance. Should I be shooting in like a pro fight type of environment where it's usually a little bit darker? And also that goes for the same for why I picked this camera. So it's a mirrorless camera with a bigger sensor, which is going to do well in low light. This camera happens to be a dual slot SD card type of camera. That way, if one SD card goes out, at least I have another just to go as a backup. And to be honest with you, this is about how I set up my photography rig as far as that goes. Sometimes I'll carry my second camera, which I'm using right now, with the 24 to 70 RF lens. That way, if somebody's really, really close, or if I need to do like a group picture, it'll give me a little bit more wiggle room, so I'm not having to stand super far back in a tournament where it's already packed with people. Okay, so a little accessory. I have the small rig, little hand, I guess, strap here to keep me connected to my camera. I would hate to drop this thing. Obviously, it's got a cage on it, but still, I wouldn't want to drop it. So this gives me a little bit more of assurance and just helps me keep things a little bit more stable whenever I'm shooting. So I think as far as that goes, as long as you have a camera that's been produced within the last 10 to 15 years or so, that's probably going to be okay. Obviously, if you go as cheap as you can with a camera, you're going to be sacrificing some performance. So the shutter speed, having mechanical shutter, having in-body image stabilization or IBIS, if you're going to be doing video, all of those things are going to play into this. However, to just shoot pictures, honestly, you could use a phone, but I don't really want to go there in this video. So let's just keep this on to like regular pictures and cameras. Okay. So the next person I want to talk about is Zero Photography. Now, Zero, I don't know them again, but I do follow them. I do find that I really like the thing that they do specifically that I like are these non-motion type of pictures where they're getting, the back of somebody, or I guess that's not a good one right there. Like this one, for an example. I feel like what people do really well in jiu-jitsu photography is either they're really, really good with the action or really, really good with the stills. Maybe a little bit both, but those are like the two types of photography that you're really going to see. Somebody preparing to get onto the mat, and then you have the crazy action, right? Or the after. Now, I love like this picture for an example because he's just experienced probably a really tough match. And honestly, the context for me is that I've felt this type of feeling before. He does a really good job of capturing these moments where, yes, he does do a lot of, in motion jujitsu, but stuff like this is something that really inspires me in my work because I feel like I lack, I guess, the situational awareness to capture these moments. Whereas when I'm looking at the mat and like taking pictures, obviously I know like this, he's got that arm separated. He's probably going to pull him up and maybe do a spin arm bar or something. But like this is cool, man. This looks like an ad, like a Gameness ad or whatever. It looks super, super cool. So, with that being said, I think this is another person you should definitely follow, Zero Photography. He's based out of Dallas, so I'm definitely, you know, a little bit skewed on my interest of this person because they're from my hometown. So let's look at the last person I want to talk about, and that is Marcelo Wu. So Marcelo, I've talked to him a little bit here and there, but this dude has been putting out really, really awesome work, and you can see he doesn't just do jujitsu stuff. He's been doing like Arnold classics. He's got some, building work and stuff like that. But what I really, really like about Marcelo and that what he does differently is his color grading. So, I mean, just this picture right here alone, the color grading that went into this, it looks so, so nice, man. Let me see. I mean, this one here, this one's great. Um, I'm gonna like that because I just saw it. But but man, I think the dark edits they do it for me, and the color grading that I see from him. Oh, Diego Pato, that dude is he's good. You should see his Pato lock. It's cool. Um, but overall, I think what I lack in my work and what I would really like to see that not necessarily copies but emulates a little bit more is just the artistic freedom of color grading. Marcelo definitely has different looking pictures, and I feel like these are a lot more dramatic, and there's just something about them that really speak to me color wise, and that I think that's the biggest thing about Marcelo's work that I notice and that I like to admire. But going going further, right? Um, Capturing the perfect shot with jujitsu, it is a lot more than just the exposure triangle. It's the context of knowing what's coming next, the context of who's coming next, who's good, who is, the person that needs some exposure that you can see that has a lot of potential that needs obviously the world to see that what they're capable of. And with your skills, obviously you've honed in on your exposure triangle, you're doing more on your color grading, you know about jujitsu, you know these things. Those go into making great work like some of my peers that I've talked about here a second ago. Um, I invite you to follow any of these people because they are really great people. They know how to take awesome work. And to be honest with you, I've approached, Marcelo and Zero before, talked to them, and they've been, good about responding. And not that they owe that to me or anything, but to know that they're responsive and putting back into the community for people like me that I've never shot an IBJJF. I've never done an ADCC event. I've done, smaller tournaments and stuff like that. But these are the people that I look up to, and, they're not gatekeeping or putting me down or anything like that on my work. So I suggest that you follow one of these people. Please follow me. Hopefully you learned something today. When we look at overall the exposure triangle and very specific things, these things are largely going to be a trial and error thing based on countless variables of the lighting, your camera, your gear, and that sort of stuff. I can't really give you a one size fits all solution for what your settings should be right now, but obviously you want to keep these things in mind. Jiu-jitsu can be slow at times, and sometimes it can be very fast. So you want to find a good shutter speed that's going to be somewhere right in the middle. Okay, so lately I've been playing with 1/3200th of a second, It's a little bit slower, but I feel like for those moments when people are in guard or, maybe they're trying to pressure pass or whatever, those little slower moments, it does a little bit better to capture the moment to get a little bit more crisp. But just as a little bit of a, guideline, you want to have enough shutter speed to stop, but not freeze too much where you don't have enough information when the shutter closes. So I know this wasn't super, super informative, but I would like you to just walk away with this, with the idea of what you could potentially work on and what you can, think about going forward when you approach these types of events. So I just want to thank you so much for making it to the end of this video and giving me your time. Please let me know if you have any questions. I want you to feel welcome to write me a comment or whatever. I'm very responsive about, yeah, I'm very responsive of responding to these comments. So just if you have a question, let me know. I would be happy to help or direct you to somebody that does know or I think can answer your question. So please consider following me on Instagram at local Dallas man. Again, my name is Scott, and thank you for your time. Bye.